Hey guys, Kyle and Brandon here with you today. We want to talk about some of the major faults we see after a good unrack during the walkout. This could also probably happen obviously with a poor unrack, but we're going to assume that you've either been to our Principles of Loaded Movement seminar or you're headed to one soon. So we're going to assume again that there's a good unrack happening here, and then some of those key steps fall apart during the walkout. Brandon, go ahead and hop under here if you would, please. Just take your time with that unrack too. Nice unrack. Unrack and hold for me. So Brandon's being very mindful and unracking with a lot of purpose and intent here. Go ahead and walk back forward to the rack for me. So let's say he just came out of a good unrack position. You can see this nice alignment through rib cage, pelvis, and head position. Look down at your feet as you walk out. So one of the major faults we see is the athlete looking down at your feet. I promise they're attached, they're not going to go anywhere. You can see this rounding that it's helped pull him forward, especially if there's a big load on the bar. He might be able to extend his head a little bit here, but with a big load, this is never going to reclaim its original optimal position that it was in. Go ahead and walk back to the rack, and just a good stand tall position for me. Again, reclaiming a good position here. Go ahead and walk back for me. Good walk out this time. Everything still looks good. We're in pretty good alignment here. And then, as we've talked before, we get a big breath into the upper chest, and everything moves through this portion of the spine again. Unnecessary because it was such in a good stack position, we just broke that once again. Walk back into the rack, please. Good unrack position. We'll walk out again. Everything's still pretty stacked. Athlete's not looking down at his feet. Good position once again all the way through. And the hinge, anterior tilt. Yep, into a squat. Very common we see. Once again, just looking at it from the other side. Now there's no movement here. The movement's coming out of this position. But we had such good rib cage and pelvis positioning right before the squat, we give that up. Go ahead and walk back in one last time, please. We have our good unrack position once again. And this time, just go ahead and get a little bit loose with everything, not being very mindful of walking out. A lot of extra steps maybe in this. You can see there was some lateral shifting through the hips. Legs were moving quite a bit. No stiffness through here. Maybe even some tipping of the barbell as we walked out. This is kind of the worst of all of those faults. Really not regaining any tension through anywhere from the foot all the way through the shoulder. Go ahead and walk back in and rack that for me real quick. Do you have anything to add at this point in time, Brandon?
Yes, just make sure that you're coming up with a sequence and stick to that sequence every single time. Doesn't matter if it's a barbell, 25%, 50% of your one rep max, always practicing that sequence. That way you can get a very repeatable way of squatting with the utmost intent.
Again, at our Principles of Loaded Movement seminar, we cover our 5 or 7 step series to the unrack, to the actual squat. We've skipped some of that for you today, but just like Brandon said, whatever you're doing, make sure you're consistent with it. Go ahead and jump back in for me one more time, please. We filmed a video the other day talking about intent of movement and warm-up. You'll see Brandon's going to be very mindful and have a ton of intent here. If this was a 500, 600, 700 pound barbell, I want him to unrack it with his first warm-up, not lose any of those faults we just covered, walk out, and give me one good squat. Nice work, go ahead and rack it. You'll see right away, forget the setup for today's video, right away from unrack, walking out, it was slow, deliberate, there was a ton of intent. We never lost any of our positioning on those 4 major faults that we talk about. A good controlled squat, back into the rack. Last things to add there, Brandon?
Nope, that about covers it.
Thanks, guys.